welcome back to the Claremont Classic Garage. Today is the day we're going to start getting this thing in there. First thing we've got to do is get the seat and the carpet out of it. And this one, luckily, it's an older cab, so that the hump for the four-wheel drive or four-speed, they both use the same hump, is actually removable. So that'll make our life a lot easier. So we got the carpet out, and this is what you like to see when you take your carpet out. A perfect rust-free original floor pan. What we got to do now is get this hump out. We'll have to, this is from back when it was a four-wheel drive truck. We're going to patch up this. This is where the 4x4 shifter came through. And we'll have to, when we get to that point, cut a new hole over here for the 4-speed shifter. So this is the guy here that's going to go in on the floor that adapts this tunnel to our 4-speed shifter. I think this one may be for the later floor pan, but it's close enough. We'll be fine. Here's part of the problem why I can't get this thing to sit down. That's an index thing, so when they throw this in the truck, they butt that up to the front edge of the hole, and that gets this positioned properly. Now we've got all the screws out all around this thing. We're going to just carefully go around and break the seal because there's a lot of goo. And we don't want to destroy the doghouse. So we'll just go at it easy and we'll get it. There we are. That is the inside the truck portion of the program. Now we got to get underneath and get this thing out. That's a big beast of a thing, isn't it? That's a 727, the heavy duty, because this was at least the chassis was a fleet job, and they would make everything heavy duty. We're continuing taking things apart. I've removed there's a plug here in the firewall that we had to take out so we can install the rubber boot. It's where the clutch rod goes through. And we removed the brake pedal. Now I'm going to get under the hood. I've got some stuff to do up top before I jack it up. We'll pull out the starter and unhook the kick-down linkage and the shift linkage at the steering column. Then we can get it up and get it on stands. We got it up in the air, so now I got to crawl underneath and before I start actually taking the transmission out, we've got to drain it, pull the drive shaft, and take away all the bits of linkage and transmission cooler lines. We'll get all that stuff out. Then we'll get ready to drop the transmission. So far, so good. I've gotten pretty much everything stripped off of it. All the linkage, the cooler lines, the oil's out. The speedo cable came off. The only real hurdle we're up against is right now I have to deal with. The transmission mount is completely nuked, and the bolt is stuck in the metal sleeve, which is no longer attached to the rubber, and everything just spins. So we got the old Ingersoll Rand air chisel here, and we're going to try and push that bolt out of there. Hopefully that won't be too big of a deal, because I tried already. The two bolts that go through the mount into the transmission, they're completely stuck. So I don't want to break them off. We're gonna try and push this off. Once we got this cross member out of the way, then things will be a lot better. And then we have to unhook the torque converter from the flex plate and just a few bolts around the bell housing, and it can come out. Got it. That's a crusty old thing, ain't it? But that's okay. We'll get it cleaned up, and it'll be good like new. We'll put lots of anti-seize when we put it back in. Now we're going to jack this thing up, making sure that it's not caving in our oil pan. And it's not. So we'll get this thing jacked up. You can see it going up. Jack it up as high as she'll go. There we go. And then we can get this cross member out. And once that's out, the transmission is basically free to come down. There we go. Bolt out, cross member down, and now I've lowered the back of the transmission down a little bit just to let it drain and drip while I'm going to go in and have lunch. I think I'm going to take the plug back out of the pan, let that drip some more, and then after lunch we're going to clean up under here and start getting this thing ready to come. Oh, I'll take these cooler fittings out and put plugs in there too. That'll help. Sorry, there's one there and one up in the front of the case. We'll get those out and plug them. I've got an old yoke to stick in there so that doesn't leak. And we'll try to do this without making too big of a mess. I've lowered it down a bit so we should be able to get at the back bell housing bolts from under here. I just hope that we'll be able to get it over that exhaust pipe. I don't want to have to drop the exhaust. But there's only one way to find out. Now I want to get this transmission mount off. We're going to put a new one in, but I need to get the hardware. And of course, metal screws screwed into this aluminum tail shaft. They've been in there a long time and they do not want to come out. So we're going to warm this up a little bit with our MAP gas torch and then see if we can get them to come out. And if that happens, and I think we're on a roll, I'm going to try and get the speedo adapter out. Time will tell. Well, we got one out and we broke one. That's no worry. We'll deal with it when we got the transmission out of the truck. Now I'm going to twirl the engine around and get the flex plate bolts out. And we'll keep an eye as we're going around. Sometimes on this fleet stuff, you'll find a drain plug in the torque converter. I don't know if this one will have one or not, but we'll see what we see. All right, here we go. I'll see if we can see at the tripod. Okay. I've got all the bolts out. I've got it separated from the engine, and it's just a matter of lowering it down and jiggling it back bit by bit. We got the dipstick tube up there hitting the firewall. But it should come just literally straight down. And then the dipstick tube will be a non-issue. Hang on, just the handle of the dipstick is catching a pinch weld up there. Just get that past. There we go. There we are. And down she comes. And there goes the alarm, my outdoor alarm. There! And there she is. Now we got some cleanup to do under there. And, all right. Then it'll be time to start putting stuff together. Now we're going to get all our hardware all cleaned up and ready to go back in, you know, so we don't have to deal with stuff like this, right? You can see here this thing's got a pilot bushing already in it, so this engine's already had a manual transmission on the back of it at some point in its life. I think Nick said it had an OD on it. I got this engine from Nick at Real Guy Garage. So we want to get this out because we're going to use the Dakota style that goes in here. So what we have to do is, there's all kinds of ways to get these out. You'll see some guys pack them with bread and pound them out. You could pack them with grease and pound them out. You can thread them and draw them out. But what we're going to do is use our handy dandy bushing puller. So I'll get it set up in there and then I'll show you how it works. So there we go. You can see this screw goes down in between there and between the jaws and spreads them. It's got little teeth on the back side of it to catch the back side of the bushing. And then you just use this nut here to draw it out. The bread and grease trick worked too, but I like my puller. And there it is, out. Good. Now we can, we'll get this cleaned up and it'll be ready for our new one. Now we're going to drill a hole in the dash. We got one of these old school A-body reverse lights because on these old 833s, even the overdrives reverses beside first. So it's kind of a, there were lots of 4-speeds like that, but for whatever reason, Chrysler decided to put these little reverse lights on the dash in the muscle cars. So, yeah, I think it'd be a nice touch in our truck. I found a place for it, so we'll get the hole drilled. There we go. That's pretty cool. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go around all where these self-drilling screws were holding the doghouse in. I'm going to drill them out, and we're going to sink in some riv nuts. If I can recall when I had my Ram Charger, it actually had these things in the floor that the doghouse screwed down to, but I've only got 3 or 4 of them, so I'm not going to use those. I'm just going to put riv nuts in. Yeah, I know riv nuts cause problems later when you sometimes go to take them apart, but these ones are not blind. You'll be able to get the back side of them if you have to grab the odd one with a vice grip. And I'm going to make sure they're in there good, and I'm going to use stainless steel screws with lots of anti-seize on them, so they should not ever stick. Okay, so let's put one of these puppies in. So, for these particular ones, they're 1/4 20. So we're going to drill 11/30 seconds. And that is the right size hole for our riv nut to fit into. Almost. There, all right? Yeah, you want it to fit in there good. You don't want it loose. So now we screw the riv nut onto our riv nut tool. It looks kind of like a pop rivet machine, but it's made for these, right? And then you just give her a good squeeze. And that's it. It's in. And now we've installed a riv nut in our floor. And if you want to make sure that it's in there good and tight, you get a long threaded bolt with a nut for a spacer. You thread this baby in, make sure it's all the way through. And then we're going to hold it and then tighten that down and make sure that thing is in there good and tight. There we are. And we have installed a riv nut. So I'm going to go all the way around, get all these in, and I'll be back when I'm done. There, I've got them all around. I left these two because I may have to trim that down for the shifter when we put the little shifter hump in. So I don't want to waste them. It's no point putting them in if I'm just going to cut them out and throw them in the scrap, right? Okay, we also have to, the doghouse will have to drill out the holes because the holes were just for little screws, right? So we will we'll clearance them so we can put our stove bolts through there. Now what we have to do is drill the holes in the floor for our stiffening plate for the clutch linkage. And you can see there's the dimples. 1, 2, 3, 4, and the 5th one up there. So we're going to start with our 11/30 seconds drill bit, and then we're going to open them up to 3/8, and we'll probably have to go a little beyond that just to make it fit nicely. There we are. It's a little unnerving drilling holes in the floor of your truck, but thankfully there's factory dimples telling us where to drill holes in the floor of our truck. We're not winging it. There. All right, yeah, it's already starting to want to fit. So we'll open them up to 3/8 and see what happens. All right, I think that's got it. There we go. Perfect job. Awesome. And when we put it in, we'll put a bunch of dum-dum around these holes so it seals good. We'll put dum-dum on the other side too, around the nuts. All right, there we are. The holes all lined up. There's dum-dum around them. And we're good to go. Well, that'll do it for this one. In the next one, we're going to get going at getting the actual 4-speed stuff installed in the truck and see how that all goes together. Anyway, I'd like to thank you for tuning in. I hope you'll come back and see us again. And until then, I'm Kevin saying so long from the Claremont Classic Garage.